Imagine a beam of light passing through a biological composite. Instead of scattering randomly, the light smoothly curves inward, creating a localized optical well that physically draws a microscopic particle into its focal point. While this attraction looks exactly like gravity, no space-time is bending here. This phenomenon relies entirely on classical wave optics to curve light paths and trap matter. The mathematical framework for this effect was recently published by Ido Margolian, a Technion graduate. Margolian details an engineered biological composite, constructed from hollowed-out pollen shells and seeded microbiomes. Together, they function as a living, self-regulating gradient index metamaterial. By strictly confining the physics to classical iconal optics, we can harness targeted biological growth to deterministically shape electromagnetic fields and exert measurable, directed physical force on embedded matter. To build this material, we start microscopically. The structural base consists of deproteinized sporopollenin exon capsules. These empty shells offer resilient geometric nanochannels. Rather than remaining inert, these hollow shells act as individual microreactors. They are seeded with a highly specific synthetic community of microbes. This diagram shows a cross-section of a single pollen shell. Inside, phototrophic cyanobacteria and melanized fungi nest within the pores, establishing a localized system for broadband light absorption and rapid redox energy storage. To connect these isolated reactors, the matrix is laced with conductive biofilms, like geobacter. These bacteria form biological wires, enabling long-range electron transport between individual shells. These biological elements form an interconnected, active matrix capable of altering its own optical properties in direct response to chemical metabolism and environmental light. How this biological voxel alters the refractive index is defined by this constitutive equation. Variables show photoelasticity, altering the index under physical strain. It also accounts for radical pair spin chemistry, where weak magnetic fields shift the matrices' absorption profiles. None of these variables rely on exotic physics. They are standard solid-state and photochemical responses, amplified by the engineered microbial community. Living metabolic states, like electron transport and spin coherence, now function as active variables for a localized, mathematically predictable gradient in the refractive index. To understand how light propagates through this medium, we start with the scalar Helmholtz equation. By substituting the rapid wave oscillations, we apply the iconal approximation. Light rays become integral curves following an optical metric, bending toward higher optical density. Tracking the exact convergence of these light bundles requires us to linearize the math transverse to a central reference ray. The local focusing of the light is mathematically controlled by the trace of the transverse Hessian matrix. This yields a dimensionless design measure, the curvature indicator, denoted as K effective. When K effective persists above a specific threshold, the medium achieves a stable, functional photonic well. Verifying this precise phase shift in the laboratory requires high-resolution optical interferometry to capture the minute changes in the light's wavefront. This curvature indicator provides the specific, falsifiable target required to test if a biological index gradient can actually be converted into directed physical force. To prove that these metric wells exert force, we must measure incredibly small physical interactions in the nanonewton to micronewton range. This maps force responses across pressure environments. In a high vacuum regime, radiation pressure generates 1 to 5 nanonewtons of thrust. Moving to a low-pressure regime, photophoretic drag overtakes it, producing a bell-shaped curve peaking in the micronewton range. Observing this predictable shift from clean vacuum radiation pressure to low-pressure photophoretic drag proves that the optical metric is translating into measurable classical thrust. Executing this precise experiment is highly complex. At the nanonewton scale, physical forces are easily mimicked by subtle environmental noise. Margolin requires an exhaustive artifact budget. Thermal gradients, material outgassing, and acoustic streaming must be actively isolated and subtracted from the data. To prevent data manipulation, outputs undergo the composite figure of merit. Raw phase, orbital angular momentum, and force data are normalized into z-scores and weighted. Passing requires clearing a 5 sigma threshold and surviving triad controls against heat-killed and pollen-only slabs to rule out inert reactions. By enforcing strict classical boundaries and aggressive falsification, this framework strips away the ambiguity often found in biophysics. It provides a highly testable blueprint for engineering living transducer materials that actively shape both light and matter.